Hello and welcome to Lunchtime Politics, reaching you live from Lagos, our commercial nerve center. I'm Jeffrey Uzanga. Let's bring you up to speed with the stories we're tracking in politics and in the polity. Begin with the headlines. Suspected bandits kidnap a former Director General of the National Youth Service Corps, Major General Marazo Zega, another resident in Zega community of Kankara local government area in Katsina State. Member representing Delta North Senatorial District, Senator Ned Nwoko, defects to the All Progressives Congress from the People's Democratic Party, cites issues around his party, the PDP. And Governor Monday Okoye of Edo State suspends Commissioner for Justice and Attorney General of the state, Samson Osage, and warned her over allegation of financial infraction. Thanks again for joining us on the program where we'll give you all access past to what's going on in politics and in the polity. Let's begin the tracking from what's going on as far as the security sector is concerned. The former Director General of the National Youth Service Corps, Major General Marazo Zega, has been kidnapped by some suspected armed bandits. Eyewitnesses' account reveals to Channels Television that the general was kidnapped alongside several other residents of Zega village in Kankara local government area of Katsina State on Wednesday night after hoodlums armed with sophisticated weapons invaded his residence. During the attack, which lasted a few minutes, 2 residents were wounded while one of the hoodlums was killed after he was mistakenly shot by his colleagues. The police and the state government officials are yet to comment on this particular attack. And now to Edo State, where the governor of the state, Monday Okoye, has approved the suspension of the state attorney general and commissioner for justice, Honorable Samson Osage, and the chairman of the Edo State Local Government Service Commission, Mr. Damian Lawani, over allegations of official and financial infraction. In a statement disseminated by the secretary to the state government, Mr. Omar Akilo, it says the suspension is with immediate effect. He also says the governor has ordered the setting up of an investigative committee to investigate the allegations leveled against the 2 gentlemen. We can also tell you about what's going on at the National Assembly, where President Bola Tinubu has raised the proposed 2025 budget to 54.2 trillion naira from 49.7 trillion naira in the initial presentation, citing additional revenues generated by key government agencies. He conveyed the budget adjustment in separate letters both to the Senate and the House of Representatives, which were read during plenary on Wednesday. According to the president, the increase was driven by 1.4 trillion naira in additional revenue from the Federal Inland Revenue Service, 1.2 trillion naira from the Niger Customs Service, and 1.8 trillion naira generated by other government-owned agencies. Our correspondent, Gloria Mezeke, reports.
Lawmakers reconvene for the second plenary session of the week. A request from President Bola Tinubu proposing an increase in the 2025 appropriation bill from 49.7 trillion naira to 54.2 trillion naira is read.
I am writing to inform you of the availability of additional revenue amounting to 4.5 trillion naira and to propose its allocation within the 2025 appropriation bill to enhance the budget's responsiveness to the nation's most pressing priorities and aspirations. So from government-owned enterprises, GOEs, we have about 1.8 trillion. From Federal Inland Revenue Services, FIRS, we have about 1.4 or 1.5 thereabout trillion. And federal government's 52% share of the increase in revenue from 22.1 trillion to 25.1 trillion. With this additional revenue, the 2025 appropriation bill's total budget size would increase from 49.7 trillion to 54.2 trillion naira.
The Senate's president also reads a letter from a lawmaker stating his desire to defect from the People's Democratic Party to the All Progressives Congress.
I urge the Senate to reflect my further stay in these chambers as a full-fledged member of the All Progressives Congress. The PDP is almost dead and about to be buried with my defection. Please accept the assurances of my highest regards. Yours sincerely, Senator Prince Ned Nwoko, the new APC member of the Nigerian Senate.
His defection brings the total number of APC lawmakers to 64, while the PDP now has 33 lawmakers. This did not go down well with members of the opposition in the Senate.
We may be having issues. We may be having issues in PDP. There is crisis, no doubt about it, but definitely there is no division in the rank and file and the leadership of the PDP.
This is a matter that rests squarely on the Constitution, the right of every legislator to cross carpet.
Mr. President, everybody knows in this country that is a split in the PDP. No. You have the Wike faction, you have Bala Mohammed and his co-faction. Are they divided?
The point of order raised by the Senate leader is hereby.
Mr. President, there is no division in PDP.
Minority leader, your request is ruled out of order.
The lawmakers also consider a request by President Tinubu to terminate the appointment of 3 suspended resident electoral commissioners.
Senate is also aware that the aforementioned resident electoral commissioners were early suspended in 2022 and 2023, bordering on allegations of infractions of Electoral Act.
Barrister Hudu Yunusa Ari, Adamawa State Resident Electoral Commissioner, Professor Ekemefuna Chijioke Uzochukwu, Abia State Electoral Commissioner, by more than 2/3 of the Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, the appointments are hereby terminated.
In line with this resolution, the Senate has directed the clerk to formally communicate the approval of the request to President Tinubu for implementation. From the National Assembly, Gloria Umezuke, Channels Television News.
Well, interesting scenes at the Senate plenary yesterday. It, of course, plenary holds at the moment as we speak. But that was not all that happened. The politics continues. We also can tell you that the Board of Trustees of the People's Democratic Party has recognized Mr. Okoye as the National Secretary of the party. The recognition comes 5 days after the governors under the party took a similar position last week, asking the leadership of the party to comply with the appeal court judgment that upheld Mr. Okoye as the secretary to the PDP. When members of the party's BoT had their meeting last week, supporters of Samuel Anyanwu clashed with Mr. Okoye, creating a major scene that disrupted proceedings.
It's an emergency meeting of the People's Democratic Party Board of Trustees holding outside the party secretariat in Abuja. The meeting is convened to receive a report from the committee that was set up last week to wade into the face-off between Mr. Samuel Anyanwu and Okoye over the position of the party's national secretary. The BoT chairman explains why the meeting is holding outside the party secretariat.
We must also acknowledge the unfortunate incidents that took place during our last Board of Trustees meeting. As a result, the BoT has resolved that until the security situation is effectively addressed, its subsequent meetings will be held outside of the party secretariat.
The meeting then proceeds into a closed-door session. About an hour later, the chairman of the Board of Trustees briefs journalists on the outcome of their deliberations.
The BoT charges the National Working Committee of a great party to recognize and immediately swear in Honorable Sunday Okoye as the National Secretary of the PDP in obedience to the judgment of the Court of Appeal.
At a separate news conference, the PDP Youth Coalition is asking the Board of Trustees to allow the ongoing legal process to take its course instead of taking a position on the matter.
Looking into this matter and the possible ways of ending this crisis, the Youth Coalition resolved as follows: that the Board of Trustees should not take position that would undermine the peaceful resolution of the conflict. Allow the court process to continue so as to resolve the conflict through a constitutional means without interference and prejudice.
The latest tussle for the position of the National Secretary of the PDP started last year when some members of the party from the Southeast nominated Mr. Okoye to replace Samuel Anyanwu, whom they say had resigned to contest the Imo State governorship election. What started like an in-house disagreement snowballed into a major crisis and a fisticuff at the meeting of the BoT last week. As it stands, both the PDP Governors Forum, some members of the PDP National Working Committee and the Board of Trustees are in support of the appeal court judgment that affirms Mr. Okoye as the PDP National Secretary. For now, Mr. Okoye is awaiting a swearing in by the party's National Working Committee in compliance to the decisions of the BoT and the governors.
That will be the core of our conversation with Professor Richard Nwokocha, Associate Professor of Public Law, Department of Public Law, University, Rivers State University. But we'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll get to the conversation. Join us again. Welcome back. Let's bring in our guest, Professor Richard Nwokocha of the Rivers State University Department of Public Law. Prof, thank you for joining us on the program.
Thank you, and good day, Nigerians.
Prof, a few legalese and legal issues I want to run by you for your intervention, because at the core of what is going on at the NWC and even at the plenary in the Senate is all about the law and what it says. So let's begin with what's going on at the NWC. Yesterday, the BoT had met and they've given back into Okoye, just like the governors. The party is still divided as to, on one side, Anyanwu, on the other side, Okoye. The core of it is the fact that, so for the benefit of the audience, is the fact that Mr. Anyanwu had gone to contest the governorship election in 2023, and we understand he was meant to resign. Whether he did or not, he did. We don't know. They are of that understanding. But the caucus or the stakeholders in the Southeast had met and nominated Okoye to replace him since he was running for governor. While he lost the election, came back, it became a subject of litigation. Okoye got the judgment. He appealed, and then the Court of Appeal was against Mr. Anyanwu. And then the NWC at some point, Ologun Agba, recognized the fact that Okoye is the secretary of the party. But things snowballed quickly, and Mr. Anyanwu returned, and it was back and forth as to who is really in charge. Mr. Anyanwu say he has stay of execution, as the case is still at the Supreme Court. So where I reeled out all this background to the story so that benefit of the audience is for you to let us know. I don't think there's anything expressed in the PDP constitution that says an NWC member must resign to contest in public office. If that is not an issue, why is it a subject of contention?
Well, the interesting thing is that you have stated what the legalist battle has come to at the moment. And when the courts have made pronunciation on what the position of the law is on an issue of law that is before the court, I am afraid that we cannot, by self-help or by self-interpretation, resort to some other thing. the last pronouncement on that case is by the Court of Appeal. And it affirmed the fact that he has left that seat, the position of secretary, that he has left that position by virtue of the fact that he contested for election. Whether it's in our law or it's in their constitution, our law is superior to their constitution. That's the Electoral Act and the Constitution. And so if the court has affirmed that, that is the position. If you apply for stay of execution and the court grants it, yes, that stays execution pending the determination of that superior court, the Supreme Court in this case. But if you just applied and the court has not granted, that is no basis for you to impose yourself on the public. It has to be only when the stay has been granted. So he has a case only if he has an order of stay of execution that has been granted by the Supreme Court over that his application. But if it is just that he has filed one, no, nothing has changed. And the position of the law is that pronounced by the Court of Appeal in that case.
So as far as
best, we will only describe what is going on as
go ahead,
as the
Prof.
manifestation of the yes. We can only describe what is going on as manifestation of the rascality that appears to have been prevalent in our society now for some time, or in recent times.
Because we understand it's a declarative judgment, and his argument, in fact, I heard him say, I have filed an appeal, and there's an appeal, of course, to the Supreme Court. This case is at the Supreme Court. A stay of execution. There's always an argument as to the validity of the stay of execution. Filing, is it enough to say, as far as I filed, that solves it? Because that's his position. I don't know whether it's been heard and a statement has been made.
No, that position is wrong. If you file, you are asking the court to make a declaration. Until the court makes that declaration, the position of the law is what the court pronounced. The previous court has pronounced. So until that subsequent court, the higher court, makes a pronouncement on the prayer you brought before it, you cannot by yourself claim that you have set it aside. Because that interpretation means that you're saying you have set aside the decision of the Court of Appeal. And you have the capacity to do that as an individual.
So let's also talk about the position of the governors, staying with the law. I don't want to drag you into politics because I know you're a professional and you're a lawyer. But if you can comment on it, the governors have backed Okoye. There's also a review that was done because of what played out in the last meeting. The BoT now said Okoye is a substantive national secretary, perhaps pending what happens at the Supreme Court. The BoT, the argument is the fact that they are just an advisory body. Can they make a decision? I would like you to speak to that.
They are just an advisory body, just like every member is a member of the party. They are entitled to their opinion. But just as we discussed, the last matter we discussed, the last subject, part of that matter we discussed, it's a question of what has the law said. Now, if this was happening before the contestations in court, we will talk of how the positions they are taking express their individual opinion. But it is now a matter of law. It's also part of our undertaking as a member of an organized society to obey the Constitution. And so if the courts have made a pronouncement, every formal body, every corporate entity and human being within that territory is under obligation to obey the decision of that court on that matter until it is turned aside or until it is set aside or an order of stay of execution is obtained from a superior court. A mere application does not give you the right which the court has to declare. Then there will be no need to file it at all if just filing it entitles you to carry on in the capacity in which you are asking the court to enable you carry on. So,
Prof, let's head on to the
party.
Okay, just land on your thoughts.
They are organs of the party. They are organs of the party quite all right. The BoT, the NWC, and the rest of them, they are functional organs of the party. But decisions of the party must be taken by the party. However, decisions of the party are subject to law, and the party is bound. The party does not have to declare whether they like or do not like a judgment. They are bound by the decision of the courts, where the courts have intervened.
All right, Prof, let's head to what to the National Assembly and also get your interpretation, because this has been I find it interesting how simple things becomes legal complexities when it involves politically exposed persons. So I want my producer maybe to pull up that provision of the Constitution, section 68, subsection 1G of the Constitution. It says a member of the Senate or of the House of Representatives shall vacate his seat in the House of which he is a member if, subsection 1G, if they can give that to me, it says, being a person whose election to the House was sponsored by a political party, he becomes a member of another political party before the expiration of the period for which he was elected, provided that his membership of the latter political party is not as a result of division in a political party of which he was previously a member or a merger of two or more political parties or factions by one of which was previously sponsored and all of that. So, Prof, the framers of the Constitution looked at this and said, the only reason if you're still alive and healthy that you have to defect in a party is division. And also, if you were recalled and INEC writes to the Senate President or the leader of the House, the Speaker of the House, then you can be removed. But with what is playing out in the PDP, can that be characterized as division in the eye of what the law envisages? Because that became a problem yesterday at the Senate.
Well, I think this country, every country tests its laws. And as we test them, the court tells us what the Constitution means. This country has gone beyond that stage. That is the same question that was raised in Honorable Ifedaya Abegunde's case. In Ondo State. Ifedaya was a member of the House of Representatives, and the Supreme Court has made a final definition, has given a final definition of what the law means by crisis. So it's no longer subject to what we think. Every law-abiding citizen who wishes to avail himself of the provisions of the exceptions in Section 109 sub G, Section 68 sub G in the case of National Assembly, needs to guide himself with the definition that has been given by the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court has defined crisis, and it says it is when a party is torn in such a way that it can no longer function as a political party registered under the law. It can no longer be recognized as a political party registered under the law. And it went on to explain that there must be division in its BoT, NEC, the ESCO, and the rest of them. That the division must be of that character, of the national body of the party, not the state body of the party. And so I think we have gone beyond the stage of what is a crisis. That has been legally defined.
Just a moment, Prof. My apologies, Prof. Because this is a very vital point you're raising. So I would like you to maybe further explain. There is disagreement, then there is division.
Yes.
What did the Supreme Court mean by division? Is it that we now have two, let me give you an example, two chairmen, two national secretary, two treasurers, two publicists? What exactly is this division? Was there clarity as to division? Because it feels like there is division and disagreement is being used concurrently.
Well, from the language of the court, in Abegunde's case, Honorable Ifedaya Abegunde's case, the court has said that what constitutes division is a division that tears the party apart from up to down. The court used the language that there must be division in BoT, NEC, ESCO of the party in such a way that the party can no longer function.
Oh dear. Okay. Well, it seems we're having connectivity issues with where Prof is speaking to us from. But we've been speaking with Professor Richard Nwokocha, is Associate Professor of Public Law, Rivers State University, joining us from Port Harcourt, the Rivers State capital, via Zoom. He was making a very critical and absolutely vital point that I wanted him to land on, because this issue has been festering. The Supreme Court has made a pronouncement, but it looks like, I don't know whether we're just confused about that pronouncement, so we needed clarity. Prof, if you can hear me, Prof? Oh, there, that is, well, but from what he said, it means that the party has to be divided in such a way that they can no longer function as a political party. I don't think there's any party like that right now in Nigeria, to the best of my knowledge. But we must thank Professor Richard Nwokocha, Associate Professor of Public Law, Department of Public Law, Faculty of Law, Rivers State University, who joined us via Zoom. We're going to get him to, break this further down at some other time. But let's tell you that an oil spill in the Niger Delta obviously remains a thorny issue that the nation has struggled to deal with for decades. A long-lasting solution is one that will help solve this, and this is what a former Director General of Nigeria Maritime Administration and Safety Agency, NIMASA, shared with our political correspondent, our political anchor, Seun Okunbaloye, on our program Politics Today.
The government has shown good faith, and they're going to clean up. And if you look at the UNEP report, there are 4 dimensions recommended by that report. The first one is bioremediation. The second is build capacity of the people, so that they can take responsibility for the cleanup of Ogoni land going forward. The third, again, is sustainable livelihood. Provide alternative livelihood for the people of Ogoni, because you have polluted their rivers, you have degraded their land, you have denied them means of economic livelihood. Provide alternative means. And you've done this over a period of 50 years. So provide them alternative means of livelihood. Then the last one, which is critical, put in place a transparent governance and management system for the exploration and exploitation of oil resources to the benefit of the locals, of the Ogoni people, or the Niger Delta people, as the case may be. That, nobody is talking about that part of the report, recommendations of the report.
That's Dakuku Pesticide from Rivers State, talking about the issues around cleanup Ogoni and the oil exploration resumption in the land. Well, thank you so much for your time and company. I'm Jeffrey Uzama. You've been served on Lunchtime Politics. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.